My name is Judith. Standing in the grand foyer of this mansion that was once filled with warmth and love, now eerily quiet, I'm jolted back to reality by the insistent knock on the door. It's been 3 days since Aunt Amelia's funeral, and I've been wandering these halls like a lost soul, not knowing what the future holds. As I make my way down the long hallway, my heart pounds in my chest. When I peer through the glass, my stomach drops. There, on the porch, stand the 4 people I haven't seen in 11 years, my parents, Henry and Victoria, and my 2 older brothers, Leo and Ethan. My mother, Victoria, steps forward with a bright, but clearly forced smile. Her arms are outstretched as she cries, "Oh, sweetheart." I freeze, the smell of lilies from the funeral still clinging to my clothes. My father, Henry, pushes past me without a word, his eyes greedily scanning the foyer as if he's already sizing up his new property. Leo and Ethan follow suit, their gazes roaming over the expensive furniture, the art on the walls, and the polished wood floors. My father settles into a chair as if it's his own and says, "It's good to see you. We're here to make sure you're not alone." I stand there, my hands gripping the doorframe tightly. "Where were you 3 days ago?" My voice comes out sharper than I intended. My mother waves her hand dismissively. "Oh, Judith, you know, we had Leo's business launch party. Everyone was already coming, and the catering was paid for. We couldn't cancel something so important." Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. They had chosen a party over their own flesh and blood's funeral. But then she quickly adds, patting the couch beside her, "But we're here now. You need your real family." I let out a hollow laugh. My real family was buried this week. The words hang in the air, and for a brief moment, I see their smiles falter. But beneath their feigned concern, I can see the hunger in their eyes. It doesn't take long for them to show their true colors. My father leans back in the chair and says, "This estate is too much for a girl your age to handle. As Amelia's brother, I should inherit half. It's only fair." Leo smirks and chimes in, "And let's be honest, Judith, you're 19. What do you know about managing $3 million? The number rings in my ears like a warning bell. My mother reaches for my hand, her eyes wide with fake concern. "Sweetheart, you need guidance. We're still your parents by law. We're your guardians until you're 19 in Georgia." Her words snap something inside me. 11 years of silence, and now they want to claim me again. I excuse myself, go upstairs, and pull out the card Aunt Amelia's lawyer, Mr. Thompson, gave me at the funeral. My hands shake as I dial the number. "Mr. Thompson, it's Judith. They're here, and they won't leave." His firm voice replies, "I'll be there shortly. Don't sign or agree to anything." 20 minutes later, Mr. Thompson walks in, tall and composed, carrying his briefcase like a weapon. My family stiffens at the sight of him. "Good afternoon," he says smoothly. "I'm Jonathan Thompson, Miss Amelia's attorney. I understand there's been some confusion." My father puffs out his chest and says, "We're not confused. She's still a minor under Georgia law. We're her guardians." Mr. Thompson opens his case and pulls out some documents. His voice is calm but unyielding. "Judith has been a legal resident of Arkansas for over a decade. Here, the age of majority is 18. Furthermore, her parents relinquished their rights when Amelia legally adopted her. You have no claim, legal or otherwise, over her or this estate." The silence is deafening, broken only by Leo's angry laugh. "This is insane." Mr. Thompson closes his folder with finality. "What's insane is believing you can erase 11 years of neglect with a sudden interest in her bank account." Their faces harden, and I can see the desperation in their eyes. I know they won't give up easily. After Mr. Thompson manages to force them out, I think it's over. But the calls start almost immediately. Unknown numbers ring at all hours of the day. Leo's smooth voice comes through the phone. Look, Judith, you've got more money than you know what to do with. I'm starting a new business. All I need is some startup capital. It would be a win-win for both of us. Ethan's voice follows. I've got a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. You could double your inheritance if you just back me. My mother's calls are the worst. Her sobs bleed through the voicemail. We made a terrible mistake. You're our baby, Judith. I can't sleep knowing what we did. Please forgive us. We just need a little help. I save each message, just as Mr. Thompson instructed. A month later, he sends them a formal cease and desist, outlining every instance of harassment. He warns them that if they continue, will seek a restraining order. The calls stop, and the ensuing silence is both a relief and a source of unease. It's as if I'm standing in the eye of a storm, waiting to see if the winds will return. As I reflect on all this, my mind drifts back to when my life took a drastic turn. I was 10 years old. The sweltering summer heat in our small house in Georgia made sleep impossible. I crept downstairs for a glass of water, my bare feet making no sound on the steps. That's when I heard my parents' voices, low and laden with exhaustion, coming from the living room. We can't keep going like this, my mother said. 3 kids are just too expensive. We can barely afford Leo's new equipment for his business training and Ethan's private tutors. It's impossible. I froze, my hand clutching the banister tightly. My father sighed, sounding much older than I'd ever realized. I know, Victoria. God, I know, but what can we do? The mortgage on the house, my dwindling income. None of it's enough. There was a heavy silence, and then my mother's voice cut through it like a knife. We need a solution. A solution? The word echoed in my chest. After a pause, my father replied, Amelia has that big house in Arkansas. She's alone, and she's always asking about the kids. At 10, I didn't fully understand what they were planning. But I knew enough to realize that I was the problem they needed to solve. Leo and Ethan, with their promising futures in business and academia, were mentioned again and again. My name, however, never left their lips. The glass of water in my hand trembled, and I quietly slipped back upstairs. I pressed my ear against the cool pillow, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst through my chest. That night, for the first time, I realized that love could be measured by money, and in my parents' eyes, I just didn't add up. A few weeks later, my parents told me we were going on a summer road trip. They made it sound like a wonderful gift, just for me. They said Leo and Ethan would be too busy with their respective pursuits, but I'd get to visit my father's sister, Amelia, who lived in Arkansas. I tried to believe it was special, but the memory of their whispered conversations still haunted me. The drive seemed endless. My parents made small talk about work and the rising cost of living, but no one asked me what I was looking forward to. My stomach was in knots, filled with a mix of anticipation and dread. When we finally pulled into Amelia's driveway, her house stood before me like a dream. It was a grand mansion with tall white columns and wide, lush lawns. Amelia stepped outside to greet us. Her silver hair was neatly pulled back, and her green eyes sparkled with kindness. When she looked at me, her face softened. So this is Judith, she said, her voice warm and gentle. She crouched down to my level. Hello, sweetheart. I've been waiting to meet you. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly seen. We went inside. While the adults talked in low voices, I wandered around the room filled with beautiful furniture and shelves loaded with books. Then my father stood up and said, we should get back on the road. I jumped up, ready to go with them. But my mother's voice stopped me cold. Actually, Judith, you'll stay here with Aunt Amelia for a while. The words hit me like a thunderclap. My brothers were going home, and I was being left behind. I watched their car disappear down the driveway as Amelia placed a hand on my shoulder. The first few nights in Amelia's house felt like a strange dream. My room was bigger than the one I'd shared with my brothers back in Georgia. It had a canopy bed and large windows overlooking a beautiful garden. At first, I lay awake every night, waiting for the sound of my parents' car pulling into the driveway. But each morning, it was just Amelia's gentle knock on my door. She would ask me questions that no one at home in Georgia had ever bothered to ask. What books did I like? Did I prefer waffles or pancakes for breakfast? What subjects at school did I find the easiest? What made me nervous? I answered her cautiously, afraid that if I said the wrong thing, she'd lose interest in me. But she never did. Instead, she would lean in, ask more questions, and remember every single thing I told her. We started to build little routines. After school, she'd sit with me at the kitchen table as I did my homework, patiently guiding me when I got stuck. On weekends, she taught me how to bake pies and how to set a proper table. At night, we'd curl up on the couch and watch old movies, and she'd tell me which lines used to make her laugh when she was my age. But despite the warmth and love I felt with Amelia, a knot always remained in my chest. Weeks passed without a single phone call from Georgia. I tried to convince myself that the silence meant my parents regretted their decision and were working on a plan to bring me home. Every time the phone rang, my heart would skip a beat, only to sink again when it was just a coworker or a neighbor for Amelia. As the days turned into months, I began to realize that Amelia's presence in my life wasn't temporary. She treated me like her own daughter, not a burden. It was the first time I felt truly chosen. By the time I turned 14, my life with Amelia had become a comfortable routine. I had settled into school, made a group of friends, and even joined a local art club. Amelia was always there to support me, whether it was at my art exhibitions or when I needed help with a project. One evening after dinner, Amelia cleared the plates and sat across from me at the kitchen table. Her expression was calm, but I could sense the tension in the air. "Judith," she said carefully, "would you like to see your parents? I can reach out if that's what you want." The question felt like a heavy stone in my chest. Part of me wanted to say yes, to imagine that they'd changed their minds and would finally take me back with open arms and apologize. But another, stronger part of me remembered the endless birthdays without cards, the holidays without calls. "No," I said at last, my voice shaking slightly, but the answer felt solid. If they wanted to see me, they would have tried by now. 11 years, Amelia, not one word. She nodded slowly, her eyes filled with sadness. "Henry has always been selfish. But none of this is your fault. He failed you, not the other way around." Her words sank deep into my heart, but the ache didn't disappear completely. That night, I went upstairs and whispered to myself that I wouldn't wait for people who had already let me go. Just as I was starting to fully accept my new life with Amelia, another shadow began to creep into our home. Amelia started coming home from work looking exhausted. She would brush it off as long days at the office. But then she began to lose weight, and her clothes hung loosely on her frame, which made me very worried. By the time she finally admitted that something was wrong, I was 16. I could see the fear behind her brave smile when she told me that the doctors had found cancer. I remember sitting at the same kitchen table where she had asked me about my parents. Her face was pale, and her hands were trembling as she held a cup of tea. "It's serious," she said quietly. "But I'm going to fight it." In that moment, I knew that the woman who had saved me from a life of neglect now needed me to be strong for her. Our routines changed overnight. I learned how to cook healthy meals that were easy on her stomach. I kept the house clean and organized when she was too tired to move from the couch. The day I got my driver's license, my first trip wasn't to celebrate with friends. Instead, I took Amelia to her chemotherapy sessions. I would sit in the sterile hospital lobbies, trying to focus on my homework but constantly distracted by worry. I watched other kids my age scrolling through their phones, while I memorized her medication schedules. Amelia never stopped teaching me, even when she was sick. She sat with me and taught me how to manage my finances, how to budget, and how to plan for unexpected expenses. Money, she said one afternoon, her voice weak but determined, isn't just numbers. It's power. Never let anyone make you feel powerless because you don't understand it. I listened intently, writing down every word in the margins of her old finance books. It gave me a sense of purpose, like she was equipping me with tools for a future without her. Some nights, when she was too weak to climb the stairs, I would sleep on the couch next to her so she wouldn't feel alone. I hated the sound of her labored breathing, a constant reminder that nothing in life was certain. Just when it seemed that the illness would consume every aspect of our lives, the doctors announced a remission. But it was only a brief reprieve. By the time I turned 18, Amelia was fading away again. On my birthday, she insisted on baking me a cake. Her hands shook as she measured the ingredients, but the lopsided cake was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. That night, she gave me a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate necklace with a simple diamond pendant that had once belonged to her mother. Her eyes sparkled with tears as she fastened it around my neck. "You're strong, smart, and kind," she whispered. "Never forget that. No matter what happens, these qualities will always protect you." I wanted to believe that her strength would last forever. But a few months later, I was sitting at her hospital bedside, holding her frail hand as her breathing slowed. She slipped away quietly, like a candle being snuffed out. The funeral was a blur. Faces I didn't recognize offered their condolences, but I barely heard them. It was Mr. Thompson, Amelia's lawyer, who later sat me down and explained what she had left behind. The house, her bank accounts, everything, a total of $3 million was now mine. I should have felt secure, but all I felt was an overwhelming emptiness. The mansion, once filled with Amelia's love and laughter, now echoed with silence. Every room reminded me of her absence, and every object felt like a heavy weight on my shoulders. But as the days passed, I slowly began to heal. I decided to study finance in college, not only because it interested me but also as a way to honor Amelia's legacy. Every lecture, every late-night study session, reminded me of the afternoons she spent teaching me about money. I started to fill the house with my own life. Friends from college would come over for study sessions. I lined the shelves with books that I had chosen, and I always kept fresh flowers in the kitchen because Amelia loved them. I wore her necklace every day, like an anchor, a constant reminder of her love and the strength she had given me. Sometimes, when I sat at her desk, going through case studies, I could hear her voice in my head, calm and steady. "Never let anyone make you feel powerless." Those words carried me through the tough times, through the moments of self-doubt and loneliness. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood. It's about loyalty, sacrifice, and the choice to stay when things get hard. Amelia chose me when no one else would, and because of her, I've built a home filled with love that can never be taken away. Now, when I lock the front door at night, I know I'm locking in a lifetime of memories and love.